All right, ladies and gentlemen, time for the second reaction of the day because things are speeding along, as it would seem, with Sakamoto days. I'm just going to be real with you. It seems like we've just really sped up what is happening because we jumped from Sakamoto dealing with Torres, and now we are jumping forward and we got Sakamoto already fighting Uzuki and working on getting rid of all of his personalities. So, let's see what happens in today's chapter, shall we? Yo, peoples! Qushu92 here. Welcome back to more Sakamoto Days. In the last chapter, we had Sakamoto steadily dealing with Uzuki, Uzuki not even managing to land a single blow on Sakamoto the entire time, while Sakamoto was just easily dodging him. Mind you, this is Uzuki using the old man Takamura personality, which is pretty much his deadliest. And we've seen that there's not many things you can counter this personality with, but Sakamoto has basically ascended to an even greater height of strength, and now he's just trivializing everything that Uzuki's doing. Like, bruh, how do you take a ballpoint pen? How do you take a ballpoint pen and then throw it with enough strength to embed a sword into the ground? How do you do that? And now he gets him, because the last thing we see is him getting into a hall of mirrors, Uzuki seeing himself, and then Sakamoto just saying like, hey, you're already dead, get lost. And then apparently what it would appear is that personality for Old Man Takamura has apparently ceased. Ravi, it's good to see you as always. So now let's see what happens in days 246, Shishiba said. And we're cutting back to the fight of Oki and Nagumo. Ooh, I'm happy with this one. I'm glad we're cutting back to this. And it's just showing parts of their faces as we're looking at different parts of the town. It's probably going to get destroyed in a second, isn't it? Because Oki still doesn't have a smile on, still doesn't have any expression on his face except for sternness, and Nagumo is just steadily smiling, as the both of them continue to fight each other. And Nagumo throws out a chain from his multi-trick weapon, and then all of a sudden those chains get wrapped around like chain part of a kusarigama. It gets wrapped around Oki, and then Nagumo just goes, huh, and throws it into a speeding truck, which is now attached to Oki, and then Nagumo is just looking at him as Oki starts to get moved to the side, and Nagumo just smiles and goes, bye-bye, and Oki gets yanked off of the bridge. But before that happens, Oki manages to grab Nagumo, and they both get yanked off because he grabs him by the shirt, and Nagumo's all like, uh-oh, and they both get yanked off. And while this is happening, mind you, Oki is still bound by this chain. They are fighting while Oki's being dragged. Like, picture this. Okay, I can't show the images because of copyright reasons, and I like my job. Thank you very much. But picture a person being pulled by a boat on some jet skis. It is literally this moment, but Oki's being dragged, who's dragging Nagumo, and while they're being dragged on the ground, standing up, mind you, they're fighting each other, trying to kill each other while they're being dragged. And then the dude turns and he's going, right turn, and he makes a turn, and both Oki and Nagumo essentially go flying into another direction. They essentially go flying into another direction, and then there's an explosion where they stop, and then it cuts to people who are out on a boat in the distance, and Nagumo lands through the roof because they're eating food. They're having a good time. They're out on the boat, out on the river, and they're just eating. Nagumo crashes through the roof and he lands on the table. Some of them kind of looking mad that he just landed on their table full of food. My question is, why are people so indifferent to the craziness that happens in this story? Can I be real? We see people just act like they're bothered that these assassins are interrupting their daily lives. Mind you, we have some people who scream out in terror here and there, but it's not as much as the people who are just indifferent and even bothered by the assassins doing whatever they do in Japan. Like, no one's screaming that Nagamo just crashed in through the roof of the table, in through the roof of the boat. They're just sitting there like, why are you on my table and my food? Like, this is the mentality of so many people in this world. I don't really bring it up, but this is something that I've noticed about a whole bunch of civilians in this story, is that they're all like, oh, that person got shot. Oh no. Anyway, and it's like everyone is just dulled to the sensation of utter shock and surprise when something crazy happens. This is the civilians. But Nagamo lands on the table, and then he pours a drink. Then he starts pouring a drink for someone, going, "Good afternoon. Beg pardon. Say when." That's enough. And he just poured a drink for one of the civilians. Like it's casual. Like, what is with everyone just acting like, oh, this is just another Sunday? But then Oki pulls himself into the boat and he goes, "Hey, when you pour for someone in polite company, you show them the label." Mr. Oki, that's the problem with you, is what Shishiba said. And then he takes that same bottle and throws it at Oki. And Oki just slashes straight through it cleanly and drinks what remains out of the bottle. I still can't quite swallow it. Why would a guy like you collude with X, Mr. Oki? What's it to you? If I tell you, will you come back? Not a chance. Right. The way I see it, Nagamo, I don't want us to lose talented assassins. Huh? Take Osaragi, for example. Even with those delicate arms, she wields that enormous circular saw like a feather. Think of the skill that takes. Shishiba, too. Imagine the years of relentless training he invested to master that hammer. There's something beautiful about elevating killing to such a sublime level. And Nagamo's just looking at him going, dude's eyes are freaky. And where did it get us? Assassins have been dwindling in modern society, and it's thanks to the JAA's old approach. With each passing year, the art I love is being lost. But wasn't X killing assassins? And then Oki doesn't immediately answer. What's wrong with colluding with a former enemy if he causes chaos for the general public and creates more jobs for us? I'm struggling to understand. That's fine. Your job as an assassin isn't to overthink things. You just need to commit to the pure and transparent intent to kill. And then Oki smashes the control panel for the boat and causes it to speed forward. And then the next panel we get is this whole boat launching over the dock into the streets. Into a casino. They launch straight into a casino. And mind you, people aren't reacting overly crazy to them crashing in, because the silhouettes of these people are just simply standing up watching. And Oki notices, going, a casino? Since we're here, why not have a little fun? So what this immediately draws my attention to is we haven't seen Nagumo take out the dice of how he's going to kill his opponent ever since he was fighting, it wasn't Minimalist. Was it Minimalist? I think it was Minimalist. I'm trying to remember the exact assassin who would just crush everything into a little ball. Was that Minimalist? Hold on. Yeah, it was Minimalist. We haven't seen Nagumo take out his dice against an opponent ever since Minimalist. And now we're here in a casino, and seeing as how Nagumo likes playing with the odds when it comes to fighting his opponents, I feel like this area to fight would be very interesting. I am going to be honest with you. Like, I was surprised with how we just took a shift away from, well, I'm not even surprised with the shift we took away from shift to another scene we did with One Piece earlier today. But I am surprised that we are not continuing with Sakamoto speaking to the Takamoto personality and then just basically causing it to die. But we're cutting back to Nagumo. I am glad, however, that this fight wasn't off-screened, because we were worried about this the moment Sakamoto first showed up to Uzuki's place out of nowhere. Just beat Torres, and then the next chapter is him saving Akira. Many of us thought, I really hope they don't off-screen the fight of Nagumo and Oki. I'm glad we're getting that continuation, so that's one fear gone. We still need to cut back to Kippei and Natsuki versus Natsuki and Mafuyu. We still need to deal with that. We don't know anything about the lady with the butcher knife and the baby. That's still another loose end that's just out there, because Kumanomi and the wrestler dude with the mask, they've been dealt with. Tanabata was last we saw dealing with Shin, so that's something that's currently going on right now. Gozu is being dealt with by Shishiba and Osaragi, a little personal vendetta there, so I don't expect Gozu to walk away from that alive or, completely whole, because, you hurt Shishiba, and that's enough reasons for Osaragi to go completely out and just dismember you like she did Carolina Reaper. But I am glad we are cutting back to fights that still need to conclude before we get back, because here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that with Sakamoto telling that Takamoto personality to just, you're already dead, beat it, or get lost, I feel like it'll be a while before we see Sakamoto again. Simply because now is the time for those other loose ends to be tied up before we conclude and go back to Sakamoto and then end it with Uzuki being the last foe to face. Because we still have this order to deal with. We still got them to deal with. Once they're dealt with, then we can get back to the main fight and see it brought to its complete and total end. Don't know how many chapters are left for Sakamoto Days, but with these chapters going the way they are, it feels like we are now in the instance of loose ends being tied up before we start to bring everything to a close. That's how it feels to me. Because us cutting to Oki, we really only have like a couple of major fights left. Nagumo and Oki. Gozu versus Shishiba and Osaragi. We have Shin versus Tanabata. And we have Kippei versus Natsuki and Mafuyu. Those are the only 4 major fights of people who are still active that we have left to go by. And then, of course, we just have that one random lady with the butcher knife and baby that's still out there, but she's not fighting anyone. She's just out there. That's a secondary loose end. But everyone else, all those fights are still the ones we need to cross over before we get to Sakamoto first versus Uzuki. And I hope that with the next chapter we get, because it says that we're not going on break from this chapter either. I hope with the next set of chapters we get, it continues with Oki versus Nagumo. And then we can see an eventual end to this fight. And then we get to either Natsuki and Mafuyu versus Kippei. And then I want to say the last fight I want it to be Shin versus Tanabata. Simply because we can move from Shin to the person he idolizes and follows under straight to Sakamoto. I want his fight to be the last one. But one other thing, and I don't want to gloss over this. The reason why Oki is following Uzuki, a person that was killing assassins, despite the fact that Oki doesn't want to lose any more assassins, but Oki is siding with a person that was helping the JAA lose assassins, essentially killing them off. He says, I side with him because he brings about the chaos that allows us to keep doing our job. I'm siding with a person that was killing our own people simply because the chaos he's creating is allowing us to work just as we always have. It still provides more jobs for us. And I feel like, and listening to this guy speak, he looks at the art of killing others as literally an art form that is to be revered. There's something beautiful about elevating killing to such a sublime level. There's something beautiful about people taking killing to the next stage in a way that is unique to them, that someone like Shishiba would have to hone his strength to an insurmountable degree for him to be able to be so proficient with killing with just hammers. Osaragi, being as thin and as petite as she is, having inhuman strength that allows her to use a circular saw with such deadly precision. There's something beautiful about people who hone their craft to a point where something that seems ridiculous to use is literally the most dangerous weapons known to man in those people's hands. There's something beautiful about this. I want more of that. But because of how society is, and because of how the JAA's old approach was, that same art form that I love so much is disappearing more and more and more. So, with Uzuki, we can bring about more chaos that can breed more assassins so that art form can maintain itself and still exist. That is what Oki is siding with Uzuki for. The unique and beautiful art form of killing other people that he sees in people like Nagumo, Osaragi, Shishiba, and other assassins that have talent, that art form to his eyes has been dwindling ever since the old JAA has been a thing. But with Uzuki, chaos, destruction, death everywhere. It allows us to flourish. It allows us to become better assassins. It allows the art that I love so much to remain. That's the reason why he's siding with Uzuki. It's not even it's not even like the benefits of, like, you know, just still being an assassin. He sees it as an art form that needs to be preserved. And with Uzuki, it helps that cause. Which is a really twisted way when you think about it. Because all the chaos and destruction that has happened underneath Uzuki has called basically over 360,000 people to die. 360,000, not 360, 360,000 people. Almost 500,000 if you give or take a couple 200. Almost 500,000, getting close to 500,000, because we're already past 250,000 people. Over 250,000 people already dead because of this chaos that Oki is okay with having if it means that his job as an assassin can be preserved in its most purest of forms. And Nagumo's all like, yeah, you're crazy. I still don't understand. And Oki says, your job as an assassin isn't to overthink things. You just need to commit to the pure and transparent intent to kill. That is literally, that's how Oki sees it. He doesn't see it as like, oh, you don't need to think about why you need to do this and why you need to do that. You just need to focus on honing yourself to the point where all you do is just kill. That is literally what Oki is talking about. Now, of course, the way you do it and the sublime level in which you obtain it to the level of like Shishiba and Osaragi, that's what he wants as well. He likes that. That's an art form to him. The different ways other people kill each other is an art form to him. So in Oki's eyes, you don't need to think about why you do what you do. Just do it in a good way. Just do it in a way that I can appreciate. And then they just launch themselves into a casino. So what I want from this chapter is, well, what I want from the next chapter is for it to continue with Nagumo versus Oki. I want to see more of this conversation because Nagumo doesn't understand his thinking behind this concept. Oh, you want people to get better at killing. You want to continue this job because it's an art form to you, and siding with a person that was killing all of us is going to allow you to continue doing that. The very person that wouldn't have hesitated to kill you the first time. So, like Nagumo, I don't understand the reasoning of why he thinks this would be better for him in the long run. At this time, Oki doesn't realize that Uzuki may have lost one of his most powerful trump cards in terms of personalities with Takamura. So as far as he knows, Uzuki is that shining light that will allow assassins to flourish just as they always have, if even more so. So what I want from the next chapter is to continue this conversation. Because this fight is going to end one way. Either Nagumo goes down or Oki goes down. And one thing I want to note is just how strong Oki's weapon is. Like, who is making these weapons for everybody? Did we ever find out who's the blacksmith or weapons designer for a lot of these assassins? Like, who's making replacement circular saws for Osaragi? Who's supplying Shishiba with replacement hammers just in case his breaks? Who's supplying Oki with his big old halberd that he's using? I want to know who's the weapon designer for all these weapons that are made in this world. Not like the sommelier who just sells the weapons from John Wick. The person who makes these weapons. Like, who made Nagumo's replacement weapon? Did we ever get a name for that person? I don't think we did. But where we're at right now is I'm glad we're focusing on Nagumo and Oki. Because like I said before, many of us thought that we hoped that it wouldn't off-screen it. And they didn't. And we're continuing with it. So I'm looking forward to the next chapter. Mind you, these sessions with Sakamoto Days tend to not go as long as my One Piece ones. But I think I said everything that I wanted to say concerning this chapter, and I'm looking forward to the next one next week. Hopefully all this snow melts throughout the week and we don't get any more. Otherwise, we'll have more early sessions of manga reactions as we've had earlier today, simply because I couldn't go into church because everything is snowed in. And I got some work to do after I'm done here. But to DJ, Ravi, and everyone else who tuned in to my reaction to Sakamoto Days, I just want to say thank you. Firstly, I want to say thank you for just tuning in general. You didn't have to. Even with the way that I do my reactions where you guys can't see what I'm seeing, I'm only doing that to protect my channel so that I don't get in trouble. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time to just sit in with me for these past 20 minutes. It really does help the channel overall, and I'm looking forward to entertaining even more of you in the future. But now it's time for me to eat some food and do some yard work because that driveway ain't gonna pave itself. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Even check out my Patreon because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. And because I know you're coming back anyway. Have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!